If you're at an early stage startup, you're in the right place. We should be able to get our startups over the hump and without guessing or throwing spaghetti. Marketing is an important part of your go-to-market strategy, but you need to understand the why behind the what in order to get clarity, make the right decisions, and get results. Welcome to Season 4, where I'll be asking why in order to help bring more clarity to the messy world of early stage startup marketing. Meredith, you need to listen to my episode 200 because at least the beginning, like first 30, 45 seconds, because it's bloopers and it's where I mess people's names up and it's hilarious. Meredith Hein is the founder of Unicorn Content and Growth Marketing, where she works with growth stage companies. We know each other from Kellogg, but that's besides the point. You're just like an awesome person. And I've known you since you started your business. And we've just kind of been like talking every quarter about how things are going. One thing that I find fascinating about you, Meredith, is that you write books for your clients. And I want to talk about that a little bit. Like, I can't imagine writing a book for a client. What are they trying to achieve with the book? And how do you actually sit down and write books for your clients?
It's a great question. So this is such an interesting project, and it's one client that I've now written for a couple of times. So it's a firm that they don't have a lot of clients. They just need a few high-value clients. And so they're looking at basically depth as opposed to breadth, right? And what that means is an anchor piece of content that is literally a book that is their senior leaders' perspective on various aspects of the market. And so what the process is I go in, I interview probably a dozen or more folks, and I ghostwrite and craft these chapters for them based on what they're seeing in the market. And for me, it's such interesting work. Speaking of Kellogg, like business school was so fun because you got to learn about so many different things. And it's really seeing the application of those principles in the market for everything from marketing to operations to financial markets and really getting like leading perspectives on it. So, I mean, it's a value add for me. I hope it's a value add for them too.
Well, it makes sense that they have a need for like quality and not quantity content, right? So that's sort of where you come in. And I've had conversations about this before. Somebody was on the podcast a long time ago, and she had said, what kind of content would you make if you could only put one thing out there per year? Like, what would you make? And if you come at it from that perspective of just putting out one piece of content, maybe it's a year, maybe 6 months, doesn't matter. Like, that's all you get that period of time. You would make something pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So same thing goes, I think, with this book idea. It's high value, but they also have high value clients and not a lot of them. And I super love the focus on creating something just like one thing, but make it really, really good. And I'm sure that they can pick it apart and talk about things and point to things and use some of the things that are in that book outside of that book, right?
Exactly. It's super high quality. You know, it's perspectives for not the next month, not the next week. You know, this is looking pretty far ahead into the future. So these topics remain relevant for as long as, you know, the book is out, which is, you know, the next year or so. And so they're really able to capitalize on it through all of their channels. And I think it's very interesting because we talk about this all the time in content marketing. But your anchor piece of content, if it's so strong, whether that's a white paper or whether it's an ebook or a guide or whatever it is, like you can pull blogs from it, you can pull your social from it, you can drive to it from different channels. And having that mileage from that single piece really pays dividends.
Yeah. And that anchor piece of content is a book, which is like, that's unheard of. I mean, some companies do it. I think a lot of more companies have started to realize the impact of books and putting out a book. And I've been sent books, right? Like MarTech companies send books.
Yeah.
But I love it. I think it makes you focus on like, what's the one thing, and you're going to make it so, so good.
Yeah.
So awesome. Do you have it on your coffee table? You wrote a book. Did you actually like bind it and everything and put it on the coffee table?
They sent me a copy. I can't share it with you though.
Oh, Oh, okay. It's private. Okay.
It's private.
So let's talk about something that I wanted to bring up. So I love Udi Ledergor. I follow him on LinkedIn. He put out this recent LinkedIn post. He said, marketing's goal is to make sales easier. And it made me cringe. And I love him. And I think that his intentions, of course, are good. He wants to make sure that people aren't just doing marketing for the sake of marketing and like creating fluff and all that. And I agree with it. And I remember I went to a conference maybe 8 years ago, and Sangram Vajre was there, and he said the same thing. And back then it rubbed me the wrong way. It still rubs me the wrong way. Maybe I have a lot of baggage that I just need to unpack. But when someone says marketing's goal is to make sales easier, it just rubs me the wrong way. What do you think is the goal of marketing, and why do you think that is?
I mean, it is an effective marketing to make sales easier as it should be, because marketing and sales must collaborate as part of the revenue organization, or in some organizations, all of the revenue organization. But with that, the goal of marketing is to drive revenue. So yes, while that can mean making sales easier, it's also building the brand. It's making prospective clients be aware of who you are and driving demand organically that way. It's also, as a growth marketer, it's creating channels and content so that customers or prospective customers can engage and accelerate pipe to close. And it's just an interesting question currently, because in the last week or so, I've gotten 2 different clients who have had sales team members ask me, what is growth marketing? And I kind of had to sit and think about it, because I feel like as marketers, we know what growth marketing is. But if you look at Google, there's like as many definitions as there are search results for this term. But for me, it's really marketing that is focused on performance and driving revenue. And it feels as simple as that. And so, yes, it similarly makes me cringe when we classify marketing as part of a means to an end for sales, because I think it goes beyond that. And it also discounts the partnership that marketing and sales should have together.
I think the reason that it makes me cringe to this day is a lot of companies say that their product or their service, the goal is to drive revenue.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's almost like just doesn't mean anything anymore. Like if marketing's goal is to drive revenue, well, of course it is, but like there's more to it than just driving revenue. Marketing's sales goal is to drive revenue, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's goal at a company is to drive revenue, but where is marketing different from sales? Because it truly is.
Yeah.
It truly is. And I know this because I am a founder of a company that does both marketing and does both sales. I have to put on both hats and does customer success and does actually have to deliver what I say I'm going to deliver to make my clients happy. And so while the end goal for a business is to get revenue, I think marketing's goal, and that's why people are confused about it when they ask, like, what is growth marketing? I think the goal is, why can't marketing's goal be to make people laugh? Why can't marketing's goal be to make people inspired? Why can't marketing's goal be things that aren't necessarily at the bottom? Yes, of course, you want people to come and become customers, but I think marketing needs to be funny, maybe, right?
Yeah.
Needs to be inspirational, needs to evoke some emotion, needs to get people interested and enticed beyond just, can you do the thing that I want you to do to solve my problem? If yes, I'll buy it. That's like the direct to consumer thing. I'll buy this shampoo because I need to wash my hair because it needs to be clean. So I'm going to buy it. But the marketing the work I do, it's not as simple as buy the shampoo, wash your hair, and get that result, right? And I think you probably agree with that, right?
I mean, of course it's not, but you're not going to be driving revenue if you're just saying something like buy the shampoo, get clean hair. Like, this is where effective marketing, like, you're not going to achieve the goal of revenue unless you have these other pieces in place, right? So that's where, like, okay, so my day is focused on the funnel, right? So we think about top of funnel. We think about how does our brand show up in market for folks who have no idea what we are. It can't be that very, we'll call it this transactional approach. It has to be creative to be effective. It has to be stand out to be effective. The goal is not to stand out. The goal is ultimately to achieve growth for your company, at least again in growth marketing. But for that to be effective, you need to be able to do these other things well.
So what you're saying is it's more complicated than just the goal of make sales easier. And I think that's why it makes me cringe when I hear it. Okay, so let's talk about category design.
Yeah.
Because you've had some experience here, and I'm curious what your biggest advice is when you're creating content, when you're creating a new category. It's like a sliver of companies that do this. And it's fascinating because a lot of the episodes on the show that are popular with my listeners have to do with category design. So although it's like a sliver of people, I think a lot more want to do it because they realize how much potential they'll have if they create a new category. Yeah. And if they can, right, you can't force it. But if you can, of course you want to do it because there's so much potential on the other side. So what's your biggest advice when it comes to creating a new category?
It's super interesting. I have worked for a few different SaaS growth stage companies that are in kind of this category breaking space. And you see a lot of different things. You see kind of this whole spectrum of tendencies. On one end, you see folks who are really anchored in this idea of like, we need to lean into the cutting edge. We need to show off our technology. We need to show off the product and all of its features. On the other end, you have folks who fall into the old and really want to anchor on what folks know. And neither approach is really good because the former, no one knows what you're talking about. If it's truly a cutting edge category and you're trying to speak about the products and features that make you the best solution in this cutting edge category, no one is going to be able to pick up what you're putting down. Meanwhile, if you're on the other end of the spectrum and you're anchoring in what folks already know, they're going to not really understand why you're different or what you're hoping to achieve. I'm really sorry if I'm going to offend anyone, but I just had a conversation with a content strategist about like, do you think customers will care about the engineering that went into our new product? And like, no, that's a hard no. A lot of these features matter down the road in the sales cycle. Perhaps a procurement leader is going to be asking about this when they're kicking the tires of your product to see ultimately if they're going to make a purchase. But it's not a middle of funnel question. It's not a top of funnel question. This is really an area where if you're in a category creation mindset, it's about education. It's a bit of a long slog because it's a lot of time spent developing content at the top of the funnel and educating folks on where your new category fits in the context of things that they know. So there has to be this mix of old and mix of new, and that's going to vary depending on what your category is. If you're innovating delivery, you're going to be anchoring in how people understand delivery today, but then you have to shift the mindset to how folks should be thinking about delivery in the future. If you're completely out there, what's a good example of a true category breaker? If you're Uber in 2012, how much do you have to talk about taxi cabs versus the sharing economy? The sharing economy doesn't exist, but you need to be able to educate on this. But ultimately, like as you see adoption, you're going to see the content shift for these categories. And I just
even
think
like self-driving cars where people are not getting into them and, you know, maybe not this year, maybe not next year, but at some point it's going to happen. So how do you get people to like be thinking about that and feeling safe about it? And why would they want to do that? Right. I have no idea if people do feel like they're ready for the self-driving car thing. I don't think so.
I would love
like,
it. I'm so excited for it, but like I'm similarly like, okay, how do we get from A to B?
Right. And am I safe in here? Yeah, but it's coming. It's just a matter of time. So the product just has to get there, right? So we talked about a couple of things, like the category design stuff is fascinating to me. And I think what you said about it has to be a mix of both. You can't do too much of the innovative stuff because people won't understand, but you can't fall back onto the old stuff because then the story doesn't make sense. Like I thought you were pushing for something new. So you kind of have to combine both and attach to something that people know as you're building the story for the innovation. That makes sense. Do you work with category designers or category startups that need category design?
I sure do.
Okay.
And it's really interesting. Like I worked with one company actually when I was on the client side that was breaking into a new category that was literally completely new. It was a type of software that did not exist, that folks didn't understand. And that was definitely a content slog to try to get, and it was a platform solution. So it was multiple sides needing to come together to understand the solution kind of concurrently. And it was a huge challenge to try to get everyone talking to each other and understanding this product in the same way. I'm working with a client now that I would say is a little bit more familiar. It's a new category, but it's something that folks can anchor in a little bit more. I think what's interesting is ultimately, like, I always go back to something a mentor of mine used to say, and he would always remind me that you're not selling a shovel, you're selling a hole. So if you're ever like thinking about, does this matter to my customer? Is this going to make sense to my customer? Like, think about what they actually are trying to achieve. They don't care about the features of your shovel. They don't care about the torque. They don't care about the angles. They don't care about how it's produced. Like, what they care about is, will this dig a hole that I need? And I think especially as we dive into category creation, like that lesson is so important, because if your content isn't speaking to why the customer cares about like the hole that they're digging, then it's not relevant.
Right. The outcome.
Yes.
Right. It's all about the outcome. How you get there, you can get there in different ways, but the outcome is what you need to understand. And it needs to be like an actual like problem that you're solving for with your product.
Exactly. If they don't need to dig the hole, why are you forcing them to buy a shovel for it?
Right. Exactly. Okay. So I asked you a bunch of questions, and what I like to do at the end is ask, what question do you have for me? So Meredith Hein, what question do you have for me?
Okay. We are recording this on April 25th. What the heck happened with Foxtrot yesterday?
I don't know. Can you tell me what happened? They closed down? Did they close down?
In a day. Like,
are you kidding me?
Yeah.
That used to be like the hottest thing.
They were still the hottest thing. VC backed, $160 million in investments. Like,
well, we don't see behind the curtains what's going on. We don't see the actual numbers, right? And we've seen this before with other companies that are venture backed, and we think that they're growing, they're doing amazing, and suddenly they shut down. We've seen this before.
Yeah.
So I don't know what happened. Foxtrot was so hot when I was working in the office before 2020. We would all go to like the corner Foxtrot. We would go get like, it's really nice, high quality food. But then everybody stopped working from their office and they're working at home. So and then I think they did some delivery thing. I don't know. I think their numbers just didn't pan out, right?
I'm going to ask you a different question. I've been hearing rumors of like embezzlement and stuff.
Oh, really?
Like, absolutely. Like, so I live next door to a Foxtrot, or down the street from a Foxtrot, and it's absolutely bananas. Literally like a handwritten sign on the door that's like, Foxtrot is closed permanently. But like in every Foxtrot, like employees found out yesterday morning that it was shutting down.
That's crazy.
It was like, it's bananas. And like stuff has started to like come out in like cranes and things.
I'm not surprised when something is growing and they were high growth. And I was like, well, I don't know what's going on here, but I didn't give it much thought, and now it's shut down. So I'll have to come back to you and like read up on it a little bit more. I don't always have time to read up on the latest news. That's why I have this podcast, so people can keep me updated on what's happening. But yeah, that's a shocker.
Yeah. All right. My question for you is, so we've talked a lot about content. So what would you say are the coolest pieces of marketing content that you've seen lately, especially in the context of like, you're absolutely right. Like, marketing to be effective needs to be inspiring or creative or funny or stand out in some way. So like, what has stood out to you?
Yeah. And that's why, coming back to that whole reason why that sentence makes me cringe, is like the marketing that I love and remember, that's memorable and that like touches an emotional chord. That's what marketing should be about, right? Before it leads into the revenue piece. So Devin Reed, if you've heard of him, he was at Clary. He's like starting his own thing now, I think. He's doing a great job with Between the Lines, I think. It's like his new show. There's like a lot of content coming from people that have worked in B2B, and they're creating their media companies. Like Dave Gerhardt also has some cool content here, but it's scrappier. Devin has put together like really well done, high quality, like studio level content that he's just been like flying to places and recording from different settings. And I think that it's like really fun to watch what he's doing with building his media company. I made a simple visual on LinkedIn. People seem to like it. It was like when people say things like, marketing doesn't work, it's because they don't really quite understand how marketing actually works. And so I just like sometimes doodle and I drew something out and people seem to connect with it. So I'm going to include a link in the show notes, but it's basically like this visual that shows it. Some people confused it and thought it was a mountain. It's actually an iceberg.
Oh.
There's like social media that's above the water for that iceberg and then everything that's underneath and how it all kind of works together. Another example is, again, on LinkedIn. I get a lot of content and I look for them. I follow people that are actually doing things differently with their content that's funny and not cringy. It's possible. Tim Davidson is someone to watch. He's like the fruit guy. He's always like talking and cutting fruit.
Oh, fun.
He's just created this like fun personality, or he creates videos with like classical music playing in the background. And while he's talking about something outrageous, so it's just like the way that he pieces it together is really funny. So if people want to get inspired by some funny content that's not cringy, check out Tim Davidson. Lavender has a game that you can play on their homepage. So just like some really, and I'll include a link in the show notes, just some really interesting and fun ways to stand out, be different, be fun, strike an emotional chord. And I think that's the fun part of marketing. It should not be forgotten. It should not just be like marketing, content, channels, get the inbound leads, drive revenue. Don't forget that emotional side of like, why are we doing this in the first place? So maybe you agree, Meredith. Maybe you still want to drive that revenue. I don't know.
I live in the growth world, but I also live in the content world. So ultimately, like, I get measured on driving revenue, but people have to sign up. And to sign up, they need to be motivated to do it.
Yeah. And like, no one's going to read your book if you're not putting interesting stuff in there, right? And reading a book is not driving revenue, but maybe it will be, because now they just read your book and they're like way more ready to do business with you.
Yeah. You got to have a plan associated with it.
That's right. That's right. Meredith, thank you so much. You have been great. I'm glad I brought you on here. We talked about a bunch of different things, but it was fun. It was a different type of episode. So thanks for joining me. If anybody wants to find Meredith, you can go on LinkedIn, Hein Meredith, and check out her website, growwithunicorn.com. Thanks again, Meredith.
Thanks, Anna.
Thanks for listening to this weekly episode of Modern Startup Marketing. New episodes are dropping weekly, so make sure you're following wherever you get your podcasts. You can find me on LinkedIn, search for Anna Furmanov. Visit my website to learn more about how I help early stage startups. Go to furmanovmarketing.com. And don't forget to leave a review if you're loving the show.